Cincinnati, 2080. The Ohio River flooded catastrophically in 2047, destroying downtown. Instead of rebuilding on land, Cincinnati built on water. Floating platforms. Amphibious architecture. A city that rises and falls with river levels. 7 million people live on the most ambitious aquatic urban experiment ever attempted. This is the story of how flooding forced radical innovation, how disaster became opportunity, and how River City learned to float. Welcome to the Venice of America, built from necessity, not romance. The Great Flood of 2047 changed everything. Climate change intensified rainfall. The Ohio River rose 30 feet above flood stage. Downtown Cincinnati drowned for 6 months. Bridges collapsed. Buildings destroyed. 50,000 people displaced. Insurance companies declared the riverfront uninsurable. Banks wouldn't finance reconstruction on floodplain. Cincinnati faced choice: abandon the river or adapt to it. Dutch engineers proposed the radical solution: build a floating city. Adapt to water instead of fighting it. Accept flooding as permanent reality, not temporary disaster. The first floating platforms launched in 2052. Massive pontoons anchored to riverbed with flexible cables. Buildings constructed on platforms that rise and fall with water level. Initially seen as temporary emergency housing, they became permanent solution. By 2080, 60% of Cincinnati floats. The riverfront isn't edge of city, it's center. Water became foundation. Flooding became normal. The Ohio River changed from threat to address. Living on water shifted from disaster response to intentional design. Necessity became innovation, became identity. Architecture evolved radically. Buildings designed to flood without damage. Ground floors are sacrificial, empty space for water. Living spaces start second story up. Amphibious structures that detach from foundations when water rises, float on hidden pontoons, then settle back when water recedes. Materials are waterproof. Utilities are elevated. Furniture built in and secured. Everything designed for periodic submersion. Architecture became engineering. Design became survival. Beauty became secondary to buoyancy. Form followed flood. Transportation transformed completely. Roads are secondary. Boats are primary. Every resident owns watercraft, kayaks, electric boats, amphibious vehicles. Morning commute means navigating channels between floating platforms. Traffic jams happen on water. Boat licensing is mandatory. Children learn water safety before reading. Cincinnati became most water-literate city in America. Driving became boating. Streets became canals. Traffic became currents. The city moved with water, not despite it. Navigation as daily necessity. Maya Patel moved to Cincinnati in 2055 with her family, climate refugees from Mumbai. She'd lived with flooding her whole life. What terrified other Americans felt normal to her. Now she runs a floating architecture firm designing amphibious buildings for cities worldwide. Mumbai's displacement became Cincinnati's expertise. Her trauma became her career. Personal loss became professional opportunity. Cincinnati attracted water refugees specifically because water didn't scare them. The city needed people comfortable with perpetual flooding. Tragedy became qualification. Suffering became skill. The economy restructured entirely around water. Amphibious construction became major industry. Floating platform manufacturing. Boat building. Water-resistant materials production. Flood insurance, once industry death sentence, became Cincinnati specialty. Waterproofing services. Marine engineering consulting. Cincinnati exports flood adaptation knowledge globally. Venice, Amsterdam, Bangkok, all by Cincinnati expertise. The disaster that destroyed economy created new economy. Flooding that killed industries birthed industry of flood survival. Weakness became strength through acceptance, not resistance. Housing prices inverted strangely. Waterfront property, once premium, became cheapest. Most flood-exposed locations are least expensive. Wealthy people moved inland to high ground with permanent foundations. Floating homes are for working class and immigrants. Economic stratification by elevation. Rich stay dry. Poor stay wet. The class divide became vertical. High ground means high income. Low elevation means low wealth. Geography as economic destiny. Altitude as class marker. Dry as privilege. Wet as poverty. Literal high society. Surprisingly, mental health improved. Living with water created unique psychology. Acceptance of impermanence. Comfort with uncertainty. Resilience from daily adaptation. Psychologists identify aquatic mindfulness, consciousness shaped by living on flowing medium. Anxiety about control decreased. You can't control water. Depression from stagnation decreased. Water never stops moving. Cincinnati residents report unusual psychological balance. Living on unstable foundation created mental stability. Paradox. Physical insecurity created psychological security. Accepting you can't control everything brings peace. Children raised floating are fundamentally different. Swimming before walking. Boat operation by age 5. Instinctive understanding of currents, tides, water safety. They're comfortable with motion, comfortable with change, comfortable with instability. Land-raised visitors get motion sick on floating platforms. Cincinnati kids don't notice. To them, movement is baseline reality. Stillness feels unnatural. Their first generation truly aquatic. Evolution in real time. Biology adapting to environment. Human becoming amphibious. Not metaphorically. Physiologically. Inner ear development different. Balance systems adapted. Water natives. The riverfront became city center, not periphery. Floating restaurants, shops, schools, offices, all on water. Downtown moved from land to river. Urban core became aquatic. The Ohio River is Main Street. Platforms connect like city blocks. Navigation by water landmarks. Meet me at the confluence means something different now. Geography redefined. Center relocated. Urban planning inverted. Water became prime real estate because of flooding. Accepting water meant embracing it. Fighting river meant losing. Surrendering meant winning. Infrastructure became challenge and innovation. Utilities designed for movement. Flexible pipes that extend and contract. Power lines that adjust to platform height. Internet via underwater fiber optics and satellite backup. Sewage treatment on floating barges. Everything mobile. Everything adaptable. Traditional infrastructure assumed stillness. Cincinnati infrastructure assumes motion. Engineering paradigm completely different. Static became obsolete. Dynamic became essential. Infrastructure learning to dance. Cities learning to flow. Elderly populations struggled initially. Older bodies need stability. Motion causes falls. Traditional retirees fled Cincinnati. But new elderly emerged, those who aged on water. They're different. Better balance. Stronger cores. More flexible. Aging on water creates different old people. They're statistically healthier. Fall rates lower than land-dwelling seniors. Aquatic aging as preventive medicine. Instability preventing frailty. Movement maintaining strength. Water keeping elders vital. The challenge that drove some away made others stronger. Selection and adaptation together. Food production moved onto water naturally. Floating farms growing rice, water plants, aquaculture. Fish farms beneath residential platforms. Algae cultivation for protein. Hydroponic vegetables on rafts. Cincinnati became surprisingly food self-sufficient despite no land agriculture. Water provides. The medium that threatened survival enables it. Floating agriculture more productive than expected. Less land, more food. Farming adapted to water completely. Agriculture learning to float. Growing without ground. Cultivating on current. Food from flow. Dating culture adapted uniquely. First dates are boat rides. Relationship skills include tandem kayaking. Compatibility includes comfort with water. Do you get seasick? Is legitimate dating question. Couples who boat together stay together. Literally requires coordination. Water relationships have different dynamics. You can't ignore partner when navigating currents together. Cooperation is mandatory. Independence is limited. Relationships require partnership practically, not just emotionally. Water demands teamwork. River filters for compatible couples. Flooding as matchmaker. Crime decreased unexpectedly. Floating platforms are connected communities. Everyone knows neighbors by necessity. Cooperation required for survival. Crime requires anonymity. Water living eliminates isolation. Burglary is difficult when everyone sees boats coming and going. Theft is impractical on platforms where neighbors monitor everything. Violence decreased because conflict resolution became essential. Can't avoid people on small floating communities. Water created involuntary community. Community created safety. Proximity created accountability. Flooding reduced crime accidentally. Disaster as social engineering. Pets adapted fascinatingly. Dogs learned to swim. Cats disappeared mostly, incompatible with water living. Dog breeds evolved toward water-loving types. Retrievers, water dogs, breeds comfortable with wet. Animals adapted faster than humans. Pet ownership became water compatibility test. Cincinnati has highest per capita dog population because only dog people stay. Cats fled with their owners. Selection pressure on human and animal populations simultaneously. Environment shaping species composition. Nature selecting. Darwin at urban scale. Evolution visible annually. Education revolutionized. Water safety is first curriculum. Swimming mandatory kindergarten skill. Boat operation middle school requirement. Marine biology emphasized. Students learn differently, hands-on, experiential, water-based. Classrooms float. Field trips are river expeditions. Education became aquatic. Traditional academics adapted to water reality. Schools preparing students for city they actually live in, not abstract world. Practical knowledge primary. Theory secondary. Learning by doing, not just reading. Water as teacher. River as classroom. Healthcare adapted remarkably. Waterborne illnesses are controlled through public health measures. Drowning is leading cause of death. Accepted risk like car accidents once were. Hospitals are amphibious structures. Emergency services include rescue boats. Medicine adapted to aquatic reality. Doctors trained in water rescue. Nurses comfortable on moving platforms. Healthcare accounting for environmental reality. Treatment incorporating flooding. Medicine that floats. Healing on water. Medical practice as environmental adaptation. Surprisingly, property rights became philosophical question. If your platform drifts, do you still own same location? If water rises 20 feet, what does your deed describe? Traditional land ownership assumes stable ground. Floating city makes ownership abstract. Legal systems struggled adapting. New framework emerged. You own platform, not water beneath it. Location is temporary. Position is fluid. Property became mobile. Ownership divorced from fixed geography. Cincinnati forced legal innovation matching architectural innovation. Law learning to float like buildings. Homelessness transformed. Can't be street homeless when there are no streets. But water homeless exist. People living in inadequate boats, platforms too small, vessels unsafe. The visibility of homeless changed. They float past constantly. Can't ignore them. Can't segregate them to unseen areas. Water homelessness is visible homelessness. Society responded with better services. Had to, because evidence of failure floats by daily. Accountability through visibility. Shame through exposure. Problems unforgettable when floating. Solutions mandatory when unavoidable. Art culture evolved around water. Sculpture must account for flooding. Paintings incorporate water damage aesthetically. Music includes river sounds. Literature is aquatic. The arts became water-themed not by choice, but by environment. Cincinnati art is recognizable. It looks like and sounds like water. Expression shaped by medium of life. Culture reflecting environment. Creativity constrained by flooding. Constraint creating distinct aesthetic. Art that floats. Culture that flows. Beauty that accepts damage as element. Impermanence as feature not flaw. Seasons became water levels, not weather. Spring is high water season. Summer is stable water. Fall is low water. Winter is unpredictable water. Cincinnati's mark time by river height, not temperature. Calendars show flood predictions, not holidays. Cultural rhythm tied to water cycles. Traditional seasonal culture, planting, harvest, replaced by aquatic seasonal culture. High water preparations, low water maintenance. Environment completely redefining temporal experience. Nature dictating schedule. River as clock. Water as calendar. Flow as time. Insurance industry rebuilt around water. Flood insurance mandatory. Premiums based on platform quality and elevation capacity. Insurance companies inspect boats like they once inspected foundations. Entire industry restructured. But interesting thing, total insurance costs decreased. Accepting flooding and building for it is cheaper than fighting flooding and failing. Adaptation is economically rational. Resistance was expensive. Surrender saved money. Financial markets discovered what engineers knew. Working with water costs less than fighting it. Economics validating adaptation. Surprisingly, privacy decreased. Floating communities are visible. Glass walls common because opacity feels claustrophobic on water. Everyone sees everyone constantly. Curtains exist, but cultural norm is openness. Life on display. Social pressure for good behavior. Reputation matters acutely. Can't hide mistakes when neighbors watch constantly. Privacy sacrificed for community. Individual space reduced for collective security. Cincinnati traded isolation for connection. Privacy for protection. Independence for interdependence. Not everyone comfortable with trade. Many left for that reason alone. Employment shifted to water-compatible jobs. Remote work thrived. Working from floating home is easy. Marine industries boomed. Traditional office jobs moved to floating platforms. But manufacturing mostly left. Precision work difficult on moving surfaces. Cincinnati became service and knowledge economy not by choice, but by physics. Can't run assembly line on floating platform. Can run software company. Environment selecting which industries survive. Water as economic filter. Flooding determining economy. River choosing winners. Nature as invisible hand. Addiction patterns changed. Alcoholism decreased, dangerous on water. Drunk boating kills. Social pressure against intoxication near water. But other addictions increased. Work addiction, relationship addiction, anxiety about water. New pathologies emerged. Substance abuse decreased, not from health, but from hazard. Environment policing, behavior not laws. Water as behavioral regulator. Danger as social control. Physics as morality. Nature enforcing sobriety. River as cop. Drowning risk as addiction treatment. Climate refugees from other water cities gravitated to Cincinnati. People from Jakarta, Venice, Dhaka, they understood. Water refugees helping Water City. The displaced becoming builders. Cincinnati became melting pot of global aquatic experience. Knowledge from worldwide flooding concentrated in one city. Every water disaster elsewhere improved Cincinnati's knowledge. Tragedy becoming education. Suffering becoming expertise. Death becoming data. Cincinnati learned from everyone's mistakes. Became repository of global flood wisdom. Museum of Adaptation. Library of Survival. Archive of Floating Futures. Gardens became floating. Houseboats with rooftop gardens. Platforms covered with containers of plants. Flowers on rafts. Green on water. The human need for growth manifested aquatically. Plants are challenging, soil washing away, roots needing stability. But people persist. Growing things on flowing medium. Life creating life on water. Gardens as defiance. Cultivation as resistance to impermanence. Roots in floating soil. Growth on moving ground. Permanence in flux. Beauty on chaos. Hope on water. flowers floating. The question emerged, is Cincinnati still a city or is it something new? Cities require stable foundations by definition. Cincinnati defies that. Is it floating city or floating non-city? New category entirely? Urban planners lack vocabulary for Cincinnati. It's not urban, not aquatic settlement, something between. Unprecedented in human history at this scale. Cincinnati invented new form of human habitation. No name for it yet. City inadequate. Town wrong. Settlement insufficient. Whatever it is, it works. 7 million people inhabit undefined form. Successful nameless thing. Category-defying reality. Surprisingly, religion adapted beautifully. Churches float. Mosques on platforms. Temples on water. Religious architecture incorporating flooding. But more, theology adapted. Flood stories in Bible reinterpreted. Noah's Ark as literal preparation model. Water as blessing, not curse. Baptist churches especially thrived. Water baptism has new meaning when you live on water. Faith traditions incorporating aquatic reality. Religion that floats. Theology that flows. Spirituality accepting impermanence. God on water. Faith adapting. Belief floating. Weddings transformed dramatically. Ceremonies on boats. Receptions on floating platforms. But the meaning changed too. Through flood and drought, replaced traditional vows. Marriage as partnership in literal navigation. Couples kayaking from ceremony. Capsizing together is bad omen. Water weddings test compatibility immediately. Romance practical. Love functional. Partnership necessary. Beauty through pragmatism. Ceremonies acknowledging reality. Vows incorporating environment. Marriage as co-navigation. Love that floats. Commitment that flows. Partnership that survives water. Funeral traditions evolved necessarily. Burial impossible, ground floods. Cremation became standard. But Cincinnati added twist. Ashes scattered on Ohio River. Death returning to water that sustains life. Mourning incorporating river. Grief flowing downstream. Funerals on boats. Memorial services at confluence. Death adapted to aquatic life. Final rite acknowledging medium of existence. We come from water. Return to water. Literally. Biology and theology merging. Science and spirituality agreeing. Death flowing. Memory floating. Endings on current. Surprisingly, books thrived. Digital devices fail when wet despite waterproofing. Physical books are reliable, dry in waterproof boxes. Libraries are crucial infrastructure. Reading increased because alternatives less reliable. Cincinnati's literacy rate is highest in America. Flooding accidentally created reading culture. Water kills screens. Screens dying revived print. Technology failing strengthened tradition. Progress backward. Advancement through regression. Future through past. Books floating. Literature surviving. Words on paper winning. Analog triumph in digital age. Water choosing winners. Music evolved uniquely. Instruments must survive humidity. Pianos impossible. Electronic instruments risky. Acoustic guitars, brass, and voice dominate. Cincinnati sound is distinct, shaped by what instruments survive water. Music limited by environment. Limitation creating style. Constraint producing culture. Can't play piano, so don't write for piano. Can't rely on electronics, so emphasize acoustic. Environment selecting musical vocabulary. Water as composer. Flooding as instrument. River as band. Cincinnati sound is water sound. Music that floats. Parenting changed fundamentally. Children on water need constant supervision. Independence delayed. Helicopter parenting isn't neurosis, it's necessity. Kids can't free range when drowning risk is everywhere. Playground supervision mandatory. After school freedom impossible. Childhood shortened and extended simultaneously. Maturity comes faster. Independence comes slower. Parents exhausted. Children capable but constrained. Family dynamics shaped by water danger. Parenting as lifeguarding. Raising children as constant vigilance. Love as attention. Care as watching. Protection as exhaustion. Elderly care became community responsibility. Can't have isolated seniors on water. Too dangerous. Multi-generational floating platforms common. Young people checking on old people constantly. Not from duty, but necessity. Culture of care emerging from environmental requirement. Elders safer in Cincinnati than anywhere else because isolation is impossible. Can't abandon people on water. Community monitors. Everyone responsible. Aging supported structurally. Senior care accidental benefit of forced proximity. Ethics through environment. Morality through necessity. Good arising from constraint. Tourism boomed unexpectedly. People worldwide visit to see floating city. Venice of America marketing works. Tourists come for novelty. But tourism creates tension. Visitors treat floating homes like attractions. Residents' lives become tourist shows. Privacy invaded by curious visitors. The economy benefits, but quality of life suffers. Cincinnati needs tourism revenue, but resents tourist presence. Selling your adaptation becomes selling your life. Displaying survival as entertainment. Necessity as attraction. Hardship as tourism. Struggle as spectacle. Reality as theme park. The verdict on floating Cincinnati is remarkably positive. It works. 7 million people thrive. Economy functions. Quality of life is good. Community cohesion is high. Environmental adaptation is successful. But success required accepting radical change. Fighting flood would have failed. Embracing flood succeeded. Surrender wasn't defeat, it was wisdom. Cincinnati proved that adaptation beats resistance. Working with nature beats fighting nature. Acceptance beats denial. Flowing beats standing. Water wins. Always. Fighting guarantees loss. Adapting permits success. Surrender paradoxically victorious. Yet challenges persist. Platform maintenance is expensive. Storms are deadly. Not everyone adapted. Return migration happens. Some people can't live on water psychologically. Motion sickness. Anxiety about drowning. Fear of impermanence. Cincinnati works brilliantly for those who accept water. It's hell for those who can't. Selection bias in who stays. Only water-compatible people remain. Success partly reflects that not everyone can succeed here. Works for some. Impossible for others. Universal solution, it's not. Specialized adaptation for specific people. Water city for water people. Infrastructure maintenance crews are city heroes. They repair platforms. Fix flexible pipes. Maintain connections. Dangerous work on water. They keep everything functioning. Without them, floating city sinks literally. Society recognizes their value. Highest paid workers are infrastructure maintainers. Respect and compensation matching importance. Cincinnati learned that maintenance matters more than innovation. Building is one-time cost. Maintaining is perpetual necessity. Maintenance workers as essential as doctors. Infrastructure as important as medicine. Keeping things working valued over making new things. Water quality obsession defines Cincinnati. Any pollution is disaster. You live on what you poison. Environmental consciousness isn't ideological, it's survival necessity. Strictest water quality standards in America. Zero tolerance for contamination. Industries polluting face criminal charges. Everyone monitors river constantly. Environmental protection through self-interest. Can't foul your own foundation. Can't poison your home. Green politics through practical necessity, not moral superiority. Environmentalism as survival, not ideology. Water protection as self-protection. Nature care as self-care. Surprisingly, wealth inequality decreased. Can't flaunt wealth obviously on small floating platforms. Can't have massive mansions. Platforms have size limits. Wealth exists, but displays differently. Subtle signals, platform quality, boat type, location elevation. But inequality less visible. Can't build walls on water. Can't create gated communities. Physical constraints limit stratification. Environment accidentally egalitarian. Flooding as social leveler. Water as equalizer. River not caring about class. Platforms treating everyone equally. Physics producing justice accidentally. Equality through constraint. Memory became interesting question. How do you remember place that moves? Landmarks shift positions. Nothing stays where it was. Nostalgia is challenging when location is fluid. I grew up there means different things when there floats. Collective memory harder to maintain. Geography can't anchor memory when geography moves. Cincinnati developing new memory systems, temporal not spatial. Remembering when not where. Events not locations. Time not place. Floating memories for floating city. Fluid past for fluid present. Memory that flows. Language evolved uniquely. Water vocabulary expanded massively. Dozens of words for different platform types. Technical terminology became everyday speech. Cincinnati dialect is nautical. Metaphors are aquatic. Going with flow literal, not figurative. Making waves is actual description. Language reflecting environment. Words shaped by water. Communication adapted to life. Vocabulary as survival tool. Speaking Cincinnati means speaking water. Dialect as adaptation. Language that floats. Words that flow. Talk that navigates. Speech current. Elections became complicated. How do you vote by district when districts float? Gerrymandering is impossible. Boundaries move. Residency requirements are fuzzy. Where you live changes. Democracy adapted. Voting by platform cluster, not geographic boundary. Representation by community, not location. Political organization by water level, not neighborhood. The confusion produced accidentally fairer system. Can't manipulate boundaries that won't stay still. Democracy improved through technical constraint. Fair elections through floating geography. Justice through chaos. Equality through confusion. Better politics accidentally. Surprisingly, Cincinnati became model for Mars colonization. Living in hostile environment. Total dependence on life support systems. Community cooperation mandatory. Isolation from traditional civilization. Water as alien element like space. NASA studies Cincinnati. Astronauts train here. Skills for floating transfer to orbiting. Psychology of aquatic living mirrors space living. Acceptance of impermanence. Comfort with danger. Trust in systems. Cincinnati became Earth-space analog. River as training for stars. Floating as preparation for orbiting. Water city as space city prototype. Drowning training for vacuum. Climate became less threatening over time. Not because change stopped, but because Cincinnati adapted completely. Floods still happen, but they're normal, not disaster. Temperature rises don't matter on water-cooled city. Droughts are concerning but manageable. Cincinnati insulated from worst climate impacts. Not through location, but through design. Other cities fear climate future. Cincinnati already lives it. Already adapted. Already surviving. Present is everyone else's feared future. Cincinnati ahead chronologically. Living tomorrow, today. Future as present. Apocalypse as normal. Disasters baseline. Adaptation complete. The question other cities ask. Should we become Cincinnati? Should coastal cities build floating infrastructure before flooding forces it? Proactive adaptation versus reactive? Miami, New York, Bangkok, all studying Cincinnati. Some dismiss it as too radical. Others see it as inevitable. The debate, is Cincinnati warning or blueprint? Cautionary tale or instruction manual? Both probably. Warning, this is what happens if you wait too long. Blueprint, this is how to survive when it happens. Cincinnati as prophecy and solution simultaneously. Future to avoid and future to prepare for. Yet something was lost. Old Cincinnati, the land city, is gone. Historic architecture drowned or dismantled. Neighborhoods vanished. The city people grew up in doesn't exist. Cultural continuity severed. This Cincinnati succeeds brilliantly. But it's not that Cincinnati. Name and location are only connections. Everything else transformed. The people who loved old Cincinnati don't love new Cincinnati even if they live here. Success doesn't heal grief. Survival doesn't equal satisfaction. Cincinnati saved itself by becoming something else entirely. Preservation through transformation. Life through death. Continuity through rupture. Children who never knew land, Cincinnati, have different relationship to water. It's not adaptation, it's nature. They don't remember fighting floods because they never fought. Water isn't enemy or friend, just reality. Like gravity. Like air. Just there. This generation will shape Cincinnati's future because they alone are native to it. Not nostalgic for land. Not comparing to before. Just living in what is. The first true water people. Evolution complete in them. Homo aquaticus. Not metaphor. Reality. New humans for new world. Biology catching up to environment. Maintenance costs are enormous and perpetual. Platforms deteriorate. Cables corrode. Pontoons need replacement. Infrastructure constantly failing from water exposure. Cincinnati discovered that floating city costs triple what land city costs to maintain. Perpetually. Forever. The economic burden is massive. Taxes high. Everyone pays constantly for privilege of staying. Can't stop maintaining or everything sinks. Literally. The price of adaptation is eternal vigilance and endless expense. No rest. No completion. Only continuous work. Sisyphean task. Permanent burden. Price of floating. Interestingly, Cincinnati developed unique philosophy. Acceptance of impermanence as central value. Nothing lasts. Everything changes. Fighting that is suffering. Embracing that is peace. Buddhist ideas without Buddhism. Taoist principles through flooding. Philosophy born from necessity, not study. Wisdom forced by water. You can't stay rigid on flowing medium. Adapt or sink. Mentally as much as physically. Cincinnati mindset is distinct. Accepting. Flexible. Present-focused. Philosophy floating. Wisdom flowing. Thought adapted to environment. Ideas that don't sink. Surprisingly, happiness metrics are high. Despite challenges, stress, expense, and danger, Cincinnati residents report high life satisfaction. Psychologists think community cohesion explains it. Shared struggle. Common purpose. Interdependence, creating meaning. People need people. Water forces that. Individualism, impossible on water. Collectivism, mandatory. Turns out humans thrive in tight communities despite preferring isolation theoretically. Water force truth. We're social species. Happiness requires connection. Connection requires proximity. Proximity requires water apparently. Flooding as happiness generator accidentally. Military showed interest unexpectedly. Amphibious warfare training in Cincinnati. Navy operations practice. Water combat scenarios. Floating city as military asset. But Cincinnati refused military presence. Voted to remain demilitarized. Peace city on water. Neutrality declared. Switzerland of rivers. The city that learned to survive flooding doesn't want to learn to survive war. One disaster at a time. Water enough to manage. War would be too much. Cincinnati as conscientious objector. Floating pacifism. Peace that floats. Neutrality on water. Addiction to stability became recognized condition. Some residents couldn't stop yearning for solid ground. Psychological distress from perpetual motion. Ground sickness, opposite of seasickness. Longing for stillness. Therapy helps, but doesn't cure. Some conditions are environmental. No treatment for wanting what environment doesn't provide. These residents eventually leave. Can't adjust. Water incompatible with their neurology. Environment selecting for psychology as much as anything. Mental adaptation required. Brain structure matters. Some brains float. Some don't. Biology as destiny. Insurance actuaries fascinated by Cincinnati. Data on floating city challenges, century of assumptions. Risk calculations, completely different. Flood insurance unnecessary. Everything floods, always. Fire insurance critical. Fire on water is worse than on land. Life insurance recalculated. Drowning risk versus other causes. Entire industry learning from Cincinnati. Risk science rewritten. Actuarial tables rebuilt. Mathematics of floating city distinct from land city. Finance learning. Economics adapting. Insurance industry discovering water changes everything. Numbers flowing. Risk floating. Math that swims. Surprisingly, anxiety decreased population-wide. Not despite uncertainty, but because of it. Researchers discovered, accepting you can't control everything reduces anxiety. Cincinnati residents can't control water level, can't control platform movement, can't control weather. Acceptance is mandatory. Mandatory acceptance reduces anxiety. Control illusion creates anxiety. Cincinnati residents don't have control illusion. They're psychologically healthier for it. Surrender as mental health strategy. Acceptance as cure. Powerlessness as peace. Can't control, so don't worry. Wisdom forced. Peace mandatory. Calm that floats. The ultimate lesson Cincinnati teaches. Humans are more adaptable than we think. We can live on water. Raise children on water. Build economy on water. Create culture on water. Thrive on water. The adaptation we thought impossible happened in generation. Evolution we thought took millennia happened in decades. Capability we didn't know we had emerged when necessary. Cincinnati proves human potential exceeds human imagination. We adapt. We survive. We thrive. Anywhere. Anyhow. Anytime. Necessity revealing capability. Crisis proving potential. Disaster demonstrating strength. Water showing what humans can be. Cincinnati 2080 stands as proof that climate change isn't death sentence. It's transformation demand. The city that drowned learned to float. The disaster that should have killed Cincinnati birthed something new. Not better or worse than before. Just different. Adapted. Surviving. Thriving even. 7 million people living on water, proving it's possible. The future isn't about preventing change. It's about flowing with it, accepting it, adapting to it. Cincinnati didn't conquer water. It joined water, stopped fighting, started flowing, and survived. Welcome to River City's floating future. The water won, and everyone's still here. This has been Cincinnati 2080, River City's floating future. The flood came. The city stayed. The choice was simple. Fight water and lose, or join water and survive. Cincinnati chose wisely.